Have you ever wondered, why is it that a man who speaks little, yet carries himself with calm authority, can leave such a powerful impact? What is it about emotional control that stirs something deep within others, especially women? Is Stoicism just about enduring pain, or is it the silent force that shakes hearts to their core? And what did Nietzsche see in the Stoic man that the modern world still struggles to understand? Welcome to Deep Thought Realm, where we journey beyond the surface and into the mind's most mysterious chambers. In this episode, you're not just listening to ideas, you're stepping into a space where powerful insights await about desire, control, human psychology, and the strange magnetism of inner strength. If you're ready to see the world differently, you're exactly where you need to be. When we talk about strength, most imagine loud voices, dominant gestures, or a commanding presence that fills the room. But there is another kind of strength, one that doesn't demand attention, but draws it silently. The Stoic man doesn't announce his power. He doesn't seek approval, applause, or recognition. Instead, he becomes an anchor in the storm, a figure whose stillness unsettles precisely because we are so unused to it. In a world constantly begging to be seen, his calm invisibility becomes the most visible thing of all. There's something unnerving about someone who is completely unaffected by external noise. The Stoic man watches more than he speaks, and when he does speak, every word seems measured, intentional. He doesn't fill silence to avoid awkwardness. He lets it breathe even if it makes others uncomfortable. This discomfort isn't accidental. It's a side effect of being in the presence of someone who doesn't operate on the same emotional economy as the rest. He is not emotionally bankrupt, nor is he numb. He is simply in control. This level of self-mastery is not natural. It is earned. It is the result of countless internal battles, moments of doubt, and the repeated decision to respond rather than react. The Stoic man may have once been impulsive, fragile, even lost, but he chose discipline, not to become robotic, but to become sovereign over his own instincts. And that transformation leaves a mark. It changes how he enters a room, how he looks at the world, how he carries silence like a sword instead of a weakness. What many misunderstand is that this silence is not emptiness. It's depth. It's a silence full of awareness, observation, and restraint. It's the silence of someone who doesn't need to convince you of who he is, because he already knows. And that certainty, that internal rootedness creates a gravity. People lean in, they want to know more, but the Stoic man offers no easy access. What he gives deliberately, and that scarcity makes his attention feel like a gift. And maybe that's the real reason why the Stoic man leaves such a powerful impact. He is rare. In an age where oversharing is currency and performance is confused with authenticity, he moves differently, quietly, purposefully. He stands as a contrast, a reminder of something older, more grounded, something we feel instinctively drawn to, even if we can't explain why. His silence doesn't just speak, it echoes. We live in a culture that rewards noise. The louder you are, the more attention you seem to earn. Emotions are broadcast in real time, shared in stories, turned into content. Vulnerability is often confused with a lack of filters, and self-expression is mistaken for emotional honesty. But the Stoic man plays by a different rulebook. He is not performing. He doesn't overshare. His emotions are not a public event, and that quiet composure, it doesn't just stand out, it startles. In the age of instant reactions and compulsive expression, a man who does not react immediately is often seen as cold. But that's not coldness, it's control. While the world rushes to be heard, the Stoic man listens. While others speak to fill the void, he speaks only when he has something worth saying. His value system doesn't rely on applause or algorithmic approval. It relies on something much more ancient, the discipline to contain power rather than flaunt it. This kind of discipline creates a magnetic presence. Without even trying, the Stoic man becomes someone others look to for grounding. His emotional steadiness offers a form of safety, especially to those who feel constantly unmoored by the emotional chaos of modern life. But more than safety, it creates curiosity. Why doesn't he chase attention? Why doesn't he need validation? What is he anchored to that gives him such unwavering clarity? And the truth is, that anchor is often internal. While most seek meaning outside themselves, the Stoic man has cultivated an inner world that is rich, ordered, and calm. He knows what he values. He knows what he's willing to walk away from. And that kind of quiet conviction is deeply attractive, not just romantically, but energetically. People want to orbit something stable. The Stoic man doesn't demand loyalty, but his presence evokes it. What makes him rare is not just how he acts, but how he doesn't act. He doesn't overshare to feel seen. He doesn't raise his voice to feel heard. He doesn't chase because he doesn't need to. In a society where so much is performative, his stillness feels revolutionary. He becomes a contrast not just to the noise of others, but to the noise within them. And that contrast, that unfamiliar silence, is what people carry with them long after he's left the room. When Friedrich Nietzsche wrote about strength, he wasn't talking about domination over others. He wasn't impressed by titles, power plays, or surface-level masculinity. No, what fascinated Nietzsche was the man who could dominate himself. A man who could say no when it was easier to say yes. A man who didn't just act from instinct but forged his own internal law. The Stoic man in this light isn't just emotionally restrained. He is philosophically dangerous. Nietzsche's concept of the Übermensch, or overman, was not a figure of brute force but of internal sovereignty. This man doesn't follow inherited morals blindly, nor does he live to please society. He creates his own meaning, and in that process he becomes terrifyingly free. The Stoic man resembles this image, not in arrogance, but in independence. He does not wait for permission to live a certain way. His silence often says, "I have already chosen." What unsettles people, especially those addicted to approval, is this radical freedom. The Stoic man cannot be easily manipulated, flattered, or baited. He doesn't need to be liked. His inner compass is not swayed by the emotional weather of others. That kind of groundedness threatens those who define themselves through external affirmation, because his calm makes their chaos visible. His self-respect highlights their dependence. He doesn't provoke rebellion, but he provokes reflection. And that reflection can be deeply uncomfortable. People begin to ask themselves, what do I believe? What do I stand for? Who am I when no one's watching? These are Nietzschean questions, existential, raw, and hard to ignore. The Stoic man lives them daily. He is not cold, he is clear, he does not lack emotion. He has made peace with it. And that peace makes him enigmatic, because it is so rare to see a person unafraid of their own inner world. In the end, Nietzsche's ideal man is not superhuman in strength, but in responsibility. He takes full ownership of his choices, his pain, his story, and the Stoic man walks in that same tradition. He is not a product of trend or trauma. He is the result of constant, deliberate transformation. That's why his presence feels different. He's not reacting to the world, he's responding to a vision he chose. And that, more than anything else, shakes people to their core. There's a kind of man whose very presence changes the energy in a room. And it's not because he says much. In fact, he often says very little. But when he walks in, people notice. Not because he demands attention, but because he doesn't. That quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to be announced, carries a strange weight. It disrupts the usual rhythm of social interaction. And in many cases, especially with women, it provokes something visceral, an instinctive pull toward the unknown. You see, most people wear their insecurities loudly. They over-explain, over-post, over-prove, but the Stoic man doesn't. He doesn't advertise his virtues. He doesn't explain his silence. He's not trying to be mysterious. He is mysterious because he refuses to broadcast every thought and feeling. And that refusal, that self-containment, becomes magnetic. For some, even unnerving, because we are so used to being flooded with signals that we forget how powerful it is when someone simply is. What truly shakes people is not his presence, it's the contrast it creates. In a world that begs for attention, his indifference feels radical. To women especially, this kind of emotional control can spark something deep. It's not because he withholds affection manipulatively, but because he radiates self-respect. He doesn't need approval to validate his masculinity. That makes his attention feel earned, not given. And in the economy of desire, scarcity creates value. But let's go even deeper. The Stoic man doesn't posture. He doesn't pretend to be strong. He knows he is, and he doesn't need to show it. His strength isn't performative. It's embodied. It's in the way he listens without flinching. It's in the way he says no without guilt. It's in the way he makes space for silence without rushing to fill it. That kind of presence forces others to confront their own inner noise, and sometimes that confrontation is what creates the emotional tremor they can't explain. So when we say he shakes women to the core, it's not about dominance. It's about reflection. The Stoic man doesn't manipulate emotions, he triggers awareness. In his quiet confidence, people see what they lack. In his restraint, they feel their own excess, and in his stability, they realize how uncentered they've become. That's the paradox. He doesn't try to impact others, and yet he does profoundly in human interaction, especially between masculine and feminine energy. There's a hidden language at play. It's not always about what's said. Often it's about the tension between presence and intensity, calm and chaos, movement and stillness. The Stoic man represents stillness, not stagnation, but solid ground. And in contrast, that stability creates polarity, especially when met with emotional unpredictability. This isn't a flaw, it's a natural law. Opposites don't just attract, they define each other. Imagine a storm crashing against a mountain. The wind howls, the rain lashes, lightning cracks the sky, and yet the mountain stands. It doesn't react, it doesn't run, it holds. This is the role the Stoic man unconsciously plays in many dynamics. While others spiral, he grounds. While others overflow, he contains. That containment doesn't suppress, it supports. But to those unfamiliar with emotional steadiness, it can feel like resistance, even rejection. What they don't realize is its presence in its purest form. You see, emotional control isn't about suppression. It's about intentionality. The Stoic man feels deeply. He just doesn't let emotion dictate his actions. He observes it, respects it, but doesn't obey it blindly. This makes him different from the reactive norm, and that difference builds tension. It creates a mirror where others see how much they themselves are ruled by impulse. That mirror can be both beautiful and uncomfortable. Women in particular often find themselves drawn to this polarity. Not because the Stoic man is emotionally distant, but because he offers something increasingly rare, emotional security. He becomes the one who doesn't escalate conflict, who doesn't retreat under pressure. He becomes the space in which emotional intensity can exist without chaos. And that space is intoxicating because it offers safety without surrender, structure without control. And here lies the irony. The more still he becomes, the more movement he creates in others. His quiet challenges noise. His calm amplifies turbulence. His restraint turns into attraction. The Stoic man doesn't chase polarity, he embodies it. And by doing so, he shifts the dynamic without a word. He doesn't conquer, he doesn't chase, he simply remains. And in that steady presence, others find themselves moving, shifting, sometimes without even knowing why. The Stoic man doesn't walk into a room looking to challenge anyone. He doesn't raise his voice, flash his achievements, or dominate with charisma. And yet, people feel challenged. Not overtly, not aggressively, but deeply. Why? Because the Stoic man becomes a mirror, not one that flatters or distorts, but one that reflects with brutal honesty. His mere presence holds up a silent question. Who are you without the noise? This kind of reflection is unsettling because most people have built their identities around reaction. They feel validated by how quickly they respond, how strongly they express, how often they are seen. But the Stoic man is none of that. He's not playing the same game. He's not even on the same field. And that dissonance between what most people are used to and what he embodies creates a kind of emotional static. Something in others begins to resist or awaken. It's easy to call him distant. It's tempting to label him as cold, but what they're really responding to is unfamiliarity. In a world of emotional overexposure, self-containment feels like secrecy. Yet the Stoic man isn't hiding, he's choosing. He chooses what to reveal, what to engage in, what deserves his energy. And that level of intentionality exposes how little others truly choose. Most people react. He responds. That difference is subtle but seismic. The discomfort he provokes isn't personal, it's internal. When someone doesn't rise to emotional bait, doesn't inflate your ego, doesn't mirror your chaos, you're forced to sit with yourself. That's what the Stoic man does. He creates a pause. And in that pause, people confront what they usually outrun. Their dependence on external validation, their fear of silence, their lack of emotional regulation. His calmness becomes a kind of emotional spotlight. And here's the real twist. He doesn't do it to control anyone. He's not playing psychological games. His behavior isn't strategic, it's principled. The Stoic man doesn't unsettle people because he's trying to, but because they're not used to someone who doesn't need anything from them. That independence, that internal fullness is rare. And like all rare things, it challenges the status quo simply by existing. The Stoic man isn't emotionless, that's a misconception. An easy excuse people use to explain what they don't understand. He feels everything, sometimes even more deeply than others. But here's the difference. He's not ruled by what he feels. He doesn't let emotion hijack his values. He doesn't let temporary impulses steer permanent decisions. His emotions are present, but they are not in charge. And that, in a world of emotional volatility, is a rare form of power. There's a word for this kind of inner control, sovereignty, not the kind that rules others, but the kind that rules within. The Stoic man is emotionally sovereign. He doesn't avoid feelings, he observes them. He doesn't suppress his pain, he listens to it. But he also doesn't turn that pain into spectacle. He doesn't seek pity. He doesn't manipulate attention through vulnerability. He carries his wounds with quiet dignity, and that in itself commands respect. It's important to say this clearly. Restraint is not repression. Repression hides and denies. Restraint acknowledges and chooses. The Stoic man chooses. He chooses how to respond, when to speak, where to place his energy. He's not afraid of intensity, he just doesn't let it drown him. And when others witness that kind of self-possession, they often misread it as emotional distance, but in truth, it's a deeper intimacy with himself. This creates a powerful contrast. While others ride waves of mood, he remains grounded. While others seek emotional release through drama or confrontation, he seeks clarity. He processes before he reacts. He reflects before he speaks. That pause, the space between stimulus and response, is where his strength lives. And that pause makes him a sanctuary in a world full of storms. People are drawn to that sanctuary even if they don't understand why. Because beneath the surface chaos of modern life, there is a deep craving for someone who won't collapse under pressure. Someone who can hold, not just themselves, but space for others. The Stoic man doesn't offer escape from emotion. He offers mastery within it. And that emotional sovereignty doesn't just attract, it transforms. In a world obsessed with visibility, performance has become a lifestyle. People curate identities, chase trends, and shapeshift based on what gains applause. But the Stoic man isn't performing. He's not putting on a mask. He lives from a place of purpose, not to impress, not to entertain, but to remain aligned with his inner compass. And in that quiet alignment, there is a strength far more lasting than charm or popularity. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The Stoic man lives by this principle. His why may never be spoken aloud, but you can feel it in the way he moves. He doesn't waste energy chasing empty victories. He doesn't get lost in meaningless noise. His decisions are filtered through something deeper than desire: conviction. And conviction, unlike emotion, doesn't fade with the weather. There's something unshakable about a person who has defined their own values. The Stoic man knows what matters to him. That clarity simplifies his life, even in the face of complexity. He doesn't wander. He doesn't chase validation, because his purpose has already validated him. And when others encounter this level of certainty, it can feel both inspiring and intimidating. It reveals how unanchored most people truly are. But this isn't about being inflexible. Purpose doesn't make him rigid, it makes him deliberate. Every step he takes is intentional. Every word he speaks carries weight. He doesn't waste time with aimless conflict or empty promises. While the world runs faster and louder, he moves slower and deeper. Not because he's behind, but because he's ahead in a way that can't be measured on a screen. In this age of speed and spectacle, a man who lives from purpose becomes a paradox. He resists urgency. He ignores trends. He isn't distracted by the need to be seen because he sees himself. And that internal clarity allows him to navigate life with a sense of calm most only pretend to have. People feel that calm, even if they can't name it. It draws them in. Because in a world full of noise, purpose whispers and we lean in to listen. Attraction is often misunderstood. People think it's about looks, status, or the right words said at the right time. But deeper attraction, magnetic, psychological, soul-level attraction, has little to do with appearances. It's about energy. And the energy of the Stoic man says something paradoxical. I don't need you, but I see you. That statement, even when unspoken, creates a gravitational pull few can resist. You see, most people are used to being wanted for the wrong reasons. For how they look, what they provide, how well they validate someone else's ego. But the Stoic man doesn't want in order to complete himself. He's already whole. His presence is not hungry, it's full. And from that fullness, he doesn't chase, he doesn't cling, he doesn't perform, he simply recognizes. And being truly seen without agenda is one of the rarest experiences a person can have. This is why his attention feels different. It's not a tactic, it's not part of a game, it's a reflection of his presence. He doesn't flatter unnecessarily. He doesn't seduce with excess. He connects when it matters with depth and intention. That restraint creates a sacred space, one where the other person feels both respected and challenged. He doesn't seek to possess, but his attention makes you want to offer more. And yet, the moment someone tries to pull him into dependency or drama, he steps back, not to punish, but to protect his peace. He doesn't entangle himself in emotional chaos because he knows the cost of losing center. And that self-respect makes him both desired and misunderstood. He becomes the one others want close but cannot easily keep. The one who brings calm but won't be caught in turbulence. The one who sees you and still walks away if alignment is lost. This paradox of care without need, presence without pressure, is what makes the Stoic man unforgettable. He doesn't overpower you, he doesn't disappear, he simply offers a space where you are truly seen, and then leaves the rest up to you. And in a world starved for genuine connection, that kind of energy doesn't just attract, it awakens. We live in an era of overexposure. Everything is shared. Feelings, meals, thoughts, breakdowns, opinions. People rush to explain themselves, to justify their moods, to be understood before they've even understood themselves. But the Stoic man walks in the opposite direction. He does not explain everything. He does not reveal himself fully. And that restraint, that carefully held silence, doesn't create distance. It creates mystery. Mystery is not manipulation. It's not withholding out of fear. It's the quiet confidence to know that not everything needs to be said. The Stoic man chooses what to share with precision, not out of secrecy, but out of self-respect. And that leaves space for others to wonder, to question, to lean in. In a world where most people exhaust their identity in the first 5 minutes, he leaves something unsaid, something sacred, something alive. Nietzsche would likely see this not as avoidance, but as depth, because the more we talk, the more we tend to dilute what matters. The Stoic man lets his actions speak. He knows that a single gesture can echo louder than 1,000 explanations. That kind of presence forces others to listen more carefully, not just to him, but to themselves. His mystery doesn't confuse, it reveals. There's also a psychological truth at work here. We are drawn to what we don't fully understand. We chase closure. We crave clarity. But the Stoic man offers neither quickly. He invites you to sit with questions rather than rush for answers. And in doing so, he elevates every interaction into something more meaningful. He is not easily consumed, and what cannot be consumed becomes valuable. In the end, it's not just what the Stoic man withholds, it's how he withholds it. With elegance, with intentionality, with quiet strength. He reminds us that mystery is not a flaw, but a form of power. Because in a world obsessed with being seen, the one who chooses to remain partially hidden becomes unforgettable. If this journey through silence, power, and presence has stirred something in you, welcome to the realm of deeper thought. Here at Deep Thought Realm, we don't just talk. We explore, we question, we remember what most have forgotten. If you found value in today's episode, take a moment to share your reflections in the comments. What resonated with you most? Which part challenged your thinking? And if you're truly one of us, one of those who seek depth in a shallow world, type Deep Thought Realm in the comments so we know you're here. Don't forget to subscribe for more content that doesn't just pass the time, but makes you pause and think. And as always, stay grounded, stay aware, and keep seeking what lies beneath the surface.